Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to give you a brief update on the observatory, and then I think Steve's going to talk a bit more in detail about the current deployment, where we are with that. So the observatory, for those that don't know, was established about 4 years ago now to take a digitally driven approach to understanding how we can improve our cities from a sustainability perspective, with a particular initial focus on flow of energy and resources in cities. This is the team, so it's definitely it's not Steve and I. mean, Steve's the key man in a lot of respects, but there's a big team working on various aspects of this, although in reality, of course, at the moment they're all doing it from home. Our focus, as I said, really is a focus on consumption and production of energy and resources, which are commonly understood as urban metabolism, which is needed to understand how we develop a circular economy. You can't develop a circular economy without understanding the flow of energy and resources in cities. It's just not possible. So we're interested in that kind of evidence base and how you develop that. One of the things that are going on recently, I'm not sure whether Steve's going to talk about this a little more, is we're just about to relaunch the website, which is hopefully much more user-friendly, so that people can get at the data, package it in whatever way they see as useful, and so it's more easily absorbed. It was a bit techy before. Just before lockdown, we wrapped up 2 projects on how do we visualize the data better. So this is obviously better seen as an immersive slide, as it were, but we have a VR platform produced by Slanted Theory, which allows us to dig into the air quality data initially, because obviously these data sets are complicated, and of real depth, which is difficult for people to engage with. So we've Slanted Theory developed a VR platform to allow people to get into the air quality data and interrogate it, which is a slide deck in its own right. So that's something that we're wanting to, once we've come out of lockdown, get back on with expanding that through working with the council. So this was developed in conjunction with the council. What we want to do is get to the point where we can see whether this kind of input, this kind of sort of ability to get into the data actually helps people make better decisions, or is it just toys? The vans are all pretty much up and running now. So we have, going from left to right, we have I'm going to talk a bit more about Marvel in a minute, but this is a van that allows us to analyze the built environment. So as I'll come on to that in a little bit moment. So that's the physical environment. The one in the middle, Morka, is Steve's current baby, and that allows us to understand the electromagnetic RF spectrum better, so we can look at deployment of 5G and so on. And the van on the right allows us to understand air quality, Mobius, and the environment. So that allows us to sense pretty much anything in a city in terms of its sort of physical aspects of it, as it were, the visible physical aspects and the invisible environmental aspects. So Marvel is the kind of most complicated recent van, really. So I might have mentioned this before, but we have LiDAR, visual, RGB, thermal and hyperspectral imaging. The van, when it's going at full chatter, can gather about 1 terabyte an hour of data, which is needed for us to drive the ML-based tools that I'm just about to show you we're doing. This is an old image now, but I don't know if the video works. But so this is Marvel driving around Mobius, and this allows us. There's much greater resolution here than you would get through, Google or any of those other platforms, and we need that level of detail to understand what's going on to the level of resolution that we want. So the van allows us to identify where buildings are, what those buildings are at a high resolution, but of course this is just raw data. There's no information in there. The next layer to this, which is what we're doing at the moment, is building the tools that allow us to understand that's a building, that's a window, that's a door. Is it double glazed? Is it single glazed? Has it got a heat loss problem? Is it fine? Because we need to automate this process of understanding cities if we're going to decarbonise at the rate we need to do to get under the targets. So the 2D work's pretty well progressed, and the 3D work is now coming together where we can overlay those images onto a 3D mesh, and then we're building the tools that allow us to identify the aspects of that building, the components in that building. So that's going fairly well, I think, given where we are at the moment. We have, with Mott MacDonald, been developing what we started building this before digital twin came up as a phrase, but people start calling it a digital twin, but it's not really. It's a platform upon which, the idea is we want a platform upon which other tools can be mounted, off-the-shelf tools can be mounted, so that you can look at the co-simulation and co-modeling of different issues in cities. So our view is that cities are too big and open, and too open a system to actually build a digital twin of it, but you can have a platform whereby you can mount software tools upon it, so that you can look at how issues like air quality and transport, or energy and well-being and so on relate to each other. So that's pretty much finished as a proof of concept. And in terms of other things, just as a quick run through, we have a project through pitching, which John will explain, looking at identifying and exploring barriers to the deployment of IoT-based energy equipment. So that's been slowed down a bit by COVID, but we're currently just starting the deployment phase. So off the back of the IoT infrastructure that Steve will explain, what we're looking at is, can we use that distributed network to how much data can we actually gather? Most of the barriers at the moment are cultural, legal, not necessarily technical, but how can we actually deploy that, and is it a viable way forward? The other thing is, point two there is, the observatories generally seem to be growing. We're having lots of warm chats with people in bays and other government departments, although that hasn't transpired into any more money at the moment. Point three there, and this might come up later, there's the number of conversations going on and pieces of work going on to look at city, region and city council level data platforms, of which the observatory would be a node, quite possibly, to look at how we actually help local authorities, city, regions, business and citizens in terms of gathering, analysing and understanding data. One thing I think is really great this year is, particularly because it was nothing to do with me, we've established Sheffield Air. So the observatory has an air quality component to it. We've got the largest low-cost air quality sensor network in the country, I think, but it was kind of hidden under the wider observatory agenda. So we've pulled this out, and Rohit Chakraborty and Saeed Mania have set up a research group, which is about 25 people in it now, focused purely on air quality, pulling the data from the observatory and other data sets. So I think that's a great thing that those guys have done. And starting in January, we've just been awarded a little commission to look at how we figure out the city region carbon budget, based upon, there's a Bayes approach to that, but how do we make that more rigorous and more detailed, and building a roadmap for improving the way in which that's done, so that we can consistently and coherently figure out what the priorities are for decarbonisation in the city region. That's it. Oh no, one more slide actually. So third-party data, those two slides are the wrong way around. We are in the process and continue to pull in data from other locations. So we've now got the city council's traffic data and the strategic road network across the country, and because we're interested in how that perturbations sort of move across scales, and we're working with colleagues in the university to onboard more data sets to the observatory, and hope to have more announcements early next year on that. Thank you very much. I've tried to keep that quick. Sorry if it was a bit fast, but I want to allow space for Steve.